You ever get that feeling like when a movie really sticks with you? I mean, long after it's over, you're still thinking about it.
Oh, absolutely. Some films just have that power, don't they?
Yeah, and for me, Schindler's List is definitely one of those. It's more than just entertainment, you know?
It's definitely more than just a movie. When it was released back in '93, it was a huge cultural event, and it still shapes how we think about and discuss the Holocaust even today.
Exactly. And you know, it's funny because I was going back through that article you sent, Schindler's List, The Power of Storytelling in History, right?
Yeah.
And I was struck by how different things were back then, even though it wasn't that long ago.
It's true. 30 years isn't a very long time, but it's easy to forget that open conversations about the Holocaust weren't as common. The article actually points out that, the 50th anniversary of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising had just happened. And there was this, growing movement to collect and share survivor testimonies. So
it's like Schindler's List came at this really interesting time, almost like the world was ready to really listen in a way it maybe hadn't been before.
that's a really good way to put it. And this was also when the internet was just starting to take off. People were connecting and sharing information in entirely new ways. The film kind of entered this environment and just became this focal point for global conversation.
It's true. And what a conversation it was.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it won 7 Oscars, which is incredible. But the article talks about, the impact went way beyond Hollywood. People weren't just watching this movie. They were wrestling with these huge themes, debating the message, really engaging with the history.
It sparked this wave of public discourse, about morality, responsibility. The author of the article actually illustrates this with this really powerful example from their own high school experience.
Wow, I'm really curious now. What happened?
Well, they talk about how Schindler's List sparked all these really intense debates in their classrooms.
Wow, just amongst teenagers.
Yeah. And these weren't surface-level discussions either. They were really grappling with these complex questions about human nature, about the weight of silence, the courage to act in the face of, just unimaginable evil.
That's heavy stuff, especially for high schoolers.
Yeah.
It just shows you how Schindler's List wasn't just entertainment. It was like this catalyst for deeper thinking in all these unexpected places.
Exactly. It really broke the mold for how we tell these kinds of stories, especially about something as sensitive and as horrific as the Holocaust. It wasn't just facts and figures and dates.
Right.
It made history feel real, immediate, emotional.
Yeah, it put a human face on this tragedy that I think for a lot of people had felt very distant and abstract.
Exactly. And it wasn't just the story. It was how Spielberg chose to tell it. The article mentions that he used black and white film.
Right, right.
And, some people might think that's a little much, but I think it really works to pull you in.
Oh, I totally agree. It didn't feel like too much to me at all. It really did feel like looking into the past.
Yeah.
Like something that could have felt distant actually brought it closer.
Yeah. You're watching historical footage, gives it that feeling of authenticity. And by taking out the color, it removes something else, like a barrier.
Yeah.
You're just left with the rawness of it all.
Yeah.
The emotion, the reality, it's all right there.
And then there's that one moment of color, the little girl in the red coat.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of those images that just stays with you.
Absolutely. And the article talks about how Spielberg used that so deliberately. It's such a powerful image. Surrounded by black and white, the red just pops. It becomes the symbol of innocence.
Right.
Vulnerability, a stark reminder of all the lives that were lost.
Yeah.
Just incredibly poignant.
Yeah, and unsettling too, because you know what it means. You know what that girl's fate represents.
It's like this punch to the gut, but it serves a purpose.
Yeah.
It makes sure you don't forget the real cost of this history.
It makes you think about all those other stories too.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
The ones that aren't told on such a huge scale.
It shows you how powerful film can be. It's not just telling one story. It's making you think about all the ones in between, the ones that you might not have thought about otherwise.
Like opening a door,
Yeah.
right, to all these different experiences.
And it makes you ask yourself, what are the stories that we need to be paying attention to right now?
That's such a good question.
Mm-hmm.
Because, this article wasn't just about Schindler's List and how we view the past. It also talked about how it sparked all this new storytelling.
100%. Spielberg showed that you could take these really sensitive, tough parts of history and engage with them in a way that was artistic but also had a real impact.
It's about more than just telling a good story. It's starting a conversation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And not just any conversation. We're talking about moral responsibility,
Right.
Our obligations to each other. The article even mentioned the power of individual actions.
So you're talking about Schindler himself.
Yes. This one man who, by making his own choices, saved all those lives. But the film, it goes beyond just celebrating Schindler as this lone hero.
Right.
It also shows us those everyday people who did extraordinary things. The secretaries typing up the list, the guards who looked away. They remind us that even when things are really bad, individuals still have the power to choose.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed by these huge events like the Holocaust.
Yeah.
To feel like there's nothing you can do. But Schindler's List, it reminds us that every little act of defiance,
Yeah.
every act of kindness, it matters.
It all makes a difference. And that's such an important message, especially for younger people. I think they might be trying to make sense of history, you know?
Yeah.
And wondering what their place is in all of it, how they can make things better.
You know, one thing that I thought was really interesting in the article was how it talked about the film's effect on Holocaust education
Yeah.
and remembrance.
It's so important because Schindler's List, it didn't just tell us a story, it created this space for people to keep talking about the Holocaust, to learn about it, to make sure it wasn't just a chapter in a history book.
It brought the conversation into the open. And it did it in a way that was approachable and also really impactful. Because not everyone is going to sit down and, read a bunch of history books, but a film, a story
Yeah.
that can reach people in a different way.
Exactly. Spielberg understood that. He got how powerful a good story can be, how it can connect us to the past.
And by doing that, he made something that's still really powerful, even all these years later. There was this other detail in the article I wanted to go back to. It said that Spielberg used real Holocaust survivors as extras.
Wow.
I mean, can you imagine? This is pretty amazing.
I can't even imagine being on that set. It must have been, I don't know, just really powerful having those survivors there. It adds a whole other layer to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, you're not just watching actors, you're watching people who lived through this. It makes it so much more real. It's not just a story anymore.
Right, exactly.
It's like, this happened.
Yeah.
These people, they were there.
Yeah.
And it makes you think about the impact, right? Like how something like this, it doesn't just end when it's over.
It's something they carried with them, and in a way, it's something we all carry now.
And goes back to what you were saying before about choices,
Yeah.
about how we all have the power to choose. Because Schindler's List, it doesn't let you off easy. It makes you ask yourself some hard questions, like, how would I measure up in a situation like that?
Would you have the courage to do what Schindler did? Or even just, to make those small choices, the ones that might seem insignificant but can still make a difference?
Right, exactly. It's a powerful message.
Yeah.
So, okay, someone's listening to this deep dive. Maybe they've seen the film, maybe they haven't. What's the one thing we want them to take away from this conversation about Schindler's List?
I think, for me, it's what that article said about the film, creating a space for us to talk about these things, about the Holocaust, a moral responsibility, about what it means to be a human being in the face of these really, really difficult truths.
It's like we can't just ignore the hard parts of history, right?
Yeah.
We have to learn from them.
Absolutely. And we have to be willing to have those uncomfortable conversations.
Because those conversations, they matter. They shape who we are. They shape the world we live in. And Schindler's List, it's a powerful reminder of that, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's a story about the power of empathy, of compassion, and ultimately of hope, even in the darkest of times. And those are messages we need now more than ever, I think.
I couldn't agree more. Well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive on Schindler's List. It's a film that stays with you long after the credits roll and sparks these incredibly important conversations. We hope this has given you all some food for thought today.